Right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of that triathlon show. On today's show, we'll discuss how to improve your triathlon swim. And I'm your host, Michael, and I'm very excited to be joined here today by Kevin Koskella, who is a triathlon swim coach and founder and head coach of TriSwimCoachcom. And just a quick reminder before we dive in that if you're tuning in live at www.scientifictriathlon.com/live, you can submit your questions to Kevin in the comments section below the video, or we'll get to your questions in the Q&A section at the end of this interview. So let's move on to our chat with Kevin. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
Yeah, cool. So feel free to take a minute or so to introduce yourself and tell the listeners what you got going on and what it is that you do with triathlon and triathlon swimming specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is TriSwimCoachcom, and we started the site out of the desperate need of triathletes to get better at swimming, because that seems to be the hardest in terms of the technique and really learning the sport to an adequate level. So it started with just giving people workouts, because everybody was asking me as a swim coach for workouts to train for a triathlon. So I designed workout plans that kind of could suit any level, different distance triathlons. And but then what became apparent was that nobody was doing the technique properly. So just having a workout plan didn't really mean much. So then we started developing a series of drills that could help people get better at the stroke technique itself for triathlon swimming, and really took into consideration like my background as a competitive swimmer, and then what you need to know as a distance swimmer and triathlete especially. Because there's a lot of different things that are involved when you're doing, let's say, a 1 kilometer swim versus a 200-meter swim. It's quite a different experience. So we put together that, and we've been selling our programs on the TriSwimCoach.com site for quite a while now. And we have a membership site now where people join, and they get to join our membership group, which is the TriSwim Success Group. And then you get this step-by-step approach, step-by-step formula to getting better at swimming, and to really start from the ground up and learn the things that you need to learn to get to the next level. So we have it set up so that it's just easy to go step by step and improve your freestyle. And then we also still have the workout plans, and we've got a lot of other like tips and techniques and things that aren't really discussed that much out there that we really think that people need to know.
And then you also have your podcast, of course, Try Swim Coach, and I've been a long-time listener of your podcast, and I think it's really great. I've learned a lot just by listening to the podcast, which is kind of fun that you can actually learn something to apply something in your swimming and improve your swimming just by listening to explanations. But it does work, so that's really cool. Thank you for that. And you touched on it quite a bit already, but the question that I want to dive into right now is more on your swim training philosophy for triathletes, and how does that differ from the traditional approach that a competitive college swimmer or somebody like that would, or regular master's training programs would take?
Yeah, I love this question because it ties into our philosophy. And what I saw a lot out there, what I still see a lot out there, is this training philosophy that applies. People want to apply it to triathlon in general, and that is like the no pain, no gain. And I grew up with that. I heard it my whole swimming life and my athletic career. And it doesn't work with swimming, especially with triathletes that are maybe in the beginner to intermediate level, that either want to just understand and get better at swimming, or to take it to the next level. So we kind of deviate from the no pain, no gain. And then the other side of that is the more distance you can get in your workouts, the better. And people generally have this quantity over quality, because it's sort of a competitive thing. Like, oh, I did, 3,000 meters yesterday. And it's like they get bragging rights, and then they feel better about themselves because they did more in their workout. But that isn't always the best case. And in fact, a lot of times it's not good to do more, because you may have flaws in your technique, and you're just solidifying those flaws instead of improving your technique. And maybe you're only doing 1,000 meters, but it's like really good, strong technique, versus 3,000 where you're just messing yourself up and going and being inefficient and not getting as much out of it. So So we ditched that no pain, no gain, and we emphasize the quality over the quantity. And the quality comes from putting in the time to learn the drills, to learn how to swim the proper way for triathlon.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, and that reminds me of when I was a teenager and was playing different instruments. And when you play instruments, it's not about how many hours you spend. You can spend however many hours and not improve at all if you don't practice with quality. And this is a bit the same with swimming, because swimming is really a sport that is focused heavily on technique. So
right.
You mentioned beginners and people at more advanced stages, and obviously it will differ depending on the level that the swimmer you're coaching are at. But can you give us just a general overview of how you go about designing your training programs for triathlon swimmers on, let's say, how do you structure drills versus intensity versus just regular easy swimming, and the frequency and volume of workouts in general?
Yeah, before I get to that, I wanted to just expand a little bit on our philosophy and this idea of a traditional approach, because I think there's some other things before you get into the actual workouts and how many drills you're going to do and how much intensity. I think it's important to emphasize that there isn't a good, solid, one-size-fits-all approach to freestyle or to training for a triathlon swim. There are areas that I feel that are essential to proper freestyle, but there still needs to be kind of an open way of doing freestyle in terms of, like, some people do a little better with certain techniques, other people do a little better with other techniques. And that's where I think where we differentiate ourselves in terms of all the swim training programs out there, is that I don't get stuck on one way, like this is the only way and you have to do it this way, where I see that all over the place, all over the internet, where it's like you look at YouTube or various websites and they're like, this is the way everyone needs to do it. But it really depends on so many factors. It depends on what level you are now, where you want to go, what races you're doing or what race you're about to do, what part of the season you're in. There's so many factors here. And so, I like to emphasize certain aspects of freestyle, like balance. We talk a lot about balance, and then the pull, that's a super important part. But, even with balance being one of those essentials, if you do that and then you ignore all these other parts, then it's going to be really tough to improve. So, and it'll take a really long time. So as far as the actual training plans and how we structure weekly workouts or drills versus intensity. So generally, even though I just said it's all individualized, generally we are going to start with a certain length of time that's geared towards doing the drills and really executing those drills properly. So, and that can vary depending on, if it's a true beginner, someone that's just learning freestyle, that can be like 2 months of just doing drills. And it sounds like a really long time, but that's often what it takes. And I don't like to say it's a specific time period because everyone's so different. Like, I've trained people that pick it up so fast for whatever reason. Maybe they just have an inclination to swimming, but they pick it up super fast, and within 2 or 3 weeks, they're already doing they're swimming really well. But most people, it's going to take a little longer than that, and there's going to be some lessons involved. So it's going to take maybe a month, maybe 2 months to get up to speed to be able to go to the next level. So after the drills period, then I recommend or I prescribe getting aerobically fit before you do anything. So then you've got your stroke in order, you've got kind of the basics down. Then it's a matter of building up that aerobic capacity. And so there's going to be a couple, 2 to 4 weeks, depending again on when your race is, how long your race is, and all that, of just building up aerobic, and that involves some long swims, and then also some interval training, although not as intense at this point. Then I would after that period, I would get into some more tighter intervals where you're still building that aerobic base, but you're also dipping into the anaerobic zone a little bit, and you're improving your endurance by tightening up those intervals. So an interval, for someone that's just listening that doesn't really know the terminology here in swimming, an interval would be like, let's say you're doing 100-meter repeats. So you have like 5 100s. Then let's say your interval is 2 minutes. So you start the clock, and then you do 100, you come in, maybe you come in at 1:45, then you got 15 seconds of rest. And so then you do that, with every workout for a while, and then you start to improve. So then the next time, maybe a week later, you can drop it to 1:55 and still get 15 seconds rest. So that's the idea with interval training. And so that's kind of the season. And then after that, we want to add in some sprints. So we really like sprints. Like the TriSwimCoach philosophy involves some of that anaerobic training with sprints, because that's going to be where you really make the gains in terms of going faster. And there is a need to go faster. We talk a lot about efficiency and conserving energy for a triathlon, but for, depending on the level you are, some people have a need to go faster in the swim. So that's going to come with the sprints and the anaerobic training. So that will be in the next couple, 2 to 3 to 4 weeks of, still doing the workouts where you have interval training and some distance, but then incorporating some sprints. And then some workouts are just sprint focused. So maybe you're only doing like 1,200 meters the entire workout, but a lot of that is really high intensity. But that's your whole workout. So you get a lot of rest. You go really fast and you get a lot of rest, and you're not doing a lot of yards or meters.
That sounds like...
And I guess just to wrap that up, then you go into like a taper phase, and that can vary again quite a bit. But with my philosophy on taper is you don't want to drop your distance that you're doing dramatically. You can drop it gradually, but even right before your race, the week before your race, you don't want to have it so that you're going, like, let's say your race is a 1 kilometer swim. You don't want to drop it so that you're going, you're only doing like 500 meters the week before the race, because you'll start to lose a little bit of that endurance. So you want to keep those yards or meters up as high as as high as what makes sense for you.
Definitely, that makes a ton of sense, and especially since given that swimming is the one sport of the 3 in triathlon that you can recover the fastest from, compared to running and biking. So you can keep your fitness, your endurance up with the swimming, but still recover relatively fast while you're dropping your running and cycling volume much more dramatically compared to the swimming volume. And
right.
Also going back to the sprints that you talked about, that's something that I found personally, at least, that helps a lot with technique development. You really, because you really notice if you do even the smallest mistake in the sprint, then it becomes really noticeable and pronounced, just because you're trying to go fast and with a powerful stroke. So every single error in or flaw in your technique, that becomes really noticeable. So as for the next question, you mentioned like beginners and doing a lot of drills and trying to get the technique right before going into any more structured interval training. So what are the most common technique problems that you see with triathletes in their swimming form, and how do you go about correcting those flaws that you see?
Yeah, this is another great question. There are so many common mistakes that I see and that we see at TriSwimCoach. And so we have with our program, the swimmers are allowed to send me their video and then I'll critique it. And oftentimes I see the same 3 or 4 mistakes. And so it's easy for me to just rattle off, like, here's what you need to do. But I'll kind of run through those, like what we see the most. And this isn't not necessarily in order. These are all pretty common. But the first one is breathing. People get the freestyle. They actually swim a pretty, after they go through some of the drills and they work on their technique, maybe they work with a coach for a while, they can get to a certain point where it's like everything is going pretty well and everything feels pretty smooth to them. But breathing is another story. That's where everything kind of gets thrown off. Because most people, the mistake they make is they lift their head to breathe, and it's kind of hard to explain over an audio. But if people are watching the video, it's like you're, instead of going to the side, you're actually lifting your head all the way up and looking up at the sky instead. And that, what that does is it drops your other arm down. So your body, your mind, it thinks that you're falling. So it'll just start protecting you with your other arm. So then you drop your arm down, and you're missing out on that propulsion with that arm. So that causes a lot of problems. So that's why the breathing thing is the biggest mistake that people make. And they aren't able to get to the side because they are possibly, most likely, not balanced in the water. So they're extending their arm, and then as they go for a breath, everything just kind of drops down, and then they're looking up, and then everything gets worse. So you're getting very little propulsion there. So we start with the balance drill. So that's just kicking on your side. And then the shark fin drill, which is just kicking on your side and then lifting your elbow up. And those two kind of really help with balance. And I recommend doing them if it's your first few times. I recommend using fins like the Zoomers. and that makes it a lot easier to execute the drill. But yeah, and then the second thing would be the head position with that. Sometimes people have their head position is a little off, and that can make it difficult to really to breathe. So you want to look, instead of looking, well, first of all, instead of looking up when you swim, you want to look a little bit down at least. And then when you go to breathe, you want to focus on breathing to the side. So there's another drill where you can practice where you just have your head to the side and just try to get your mouth just above the water, just above the surface of the water. And that's a good one to practice, because that's where you really ultimately where you want to be. And if you're not there, if that seems crazy right now and that you might drown, then practice the balance drills, because that's what's going to get you there eventually. And then the more you practice the swim doing that, the easier it's going to become. So the second thing I would say common mistake is the sinking legs. This is something that I see with triathletes all the time. And this is also balance and head position. So it starts with balance. So like I said, those two drills that I just mentioned, you could also do those for the sinking legs. And if you do have this, if your hips and legs are sinking while you're swimming, then put on a pair of fins to do these drills, because that will help accelerate your progress here. And so then that's the balance would be the first thing. And then the head position, again, if you're looking up when you're swimming, your hips are likely going to sink. So that happens all the time with triathletes, especially if you have like low body fat, which you see a lot of triathletes. That's going to you're really going to be sinking. So just drop your head down a little bit, and you can kind of tell while you're swimming, you'll drop your head, you'll feel your hips kind of rise up a little bit. And if you're still too high, you can tell. So you want to just keep going. You want to have a little bit of the back of your head out of the water while you swim. And it's easier to see on a video than to explain, but that's kind of the way to fix that. And then rotation, so hip rotation, this is another one that most people learn to swim, at least in the US. I don't know how it is in Finland. Maybe you guys have a more advanced swimming technique when you're learning as a kid. But here in the US, it's always been taught this Red Cross method, which is using your arms and legs to swim. Like, you first learn how to move your arms in the water, and then you learn the kicking, and you blow bubbles. And I mean, all these things are taught. So we all learn this way. But what happens is you end up swimming flat in the water. So you're on your stomach the whole time. So you're using your arms and legs. And that's like the worst thing you can do if you're doing like an open water race in a triathlon, because you need the energy to move on to the next thing. Because you could muscle your way through like that method, the swimming flat method. You could totally do it, but you're going to be exhausted at the end of that swim, versus using your hips to rotate yourself through the water, which may not even be faster right away, but you're going to save a lot of energy for your bike and run. Or even if you're just doing an open water swim, you still need that energy for the whole thing, because it's depending on how long you're going to go, that's going to be crucial. So body rotation. So we have some drills for that. So you start with just putting your hands by your sides and then rotating your hips while you kick. And that's another one where fins would really help to get that. And then elbow dropping, and that's very similar to what I was just talking about with breathing. But the elbow dropping means you will not get this high elbow catch that you probably hear about a lot, or the high elbow pull. That problem happens is when you rotate, and it may or may not be when you breathe, but you rotate and then your arm just drops before you even are starting to pull. So the solution to that is to extend your arm. So you have your head down, you extend your arm, and then you bend your elbow, and then you pull back. So it's an arm extension, bend your elbow, and then pull back. And it's easier said than done. It takes some practice if you're not doing it right now. But the more you can practice that, and the better you can get at that, the more efficient that your freestyle will become, and the more you're getting out of your pull. Because there's this whole part of your pull that if you're doing more of the kind of traditional way of swimming freestyle, which is to rotate and then drop that arm down, you're only getting like half of the pull that you get if you can do this high elbow catch or a high elbow pull. So the last thing would be runner's kick. And that's, I'm sure, Michael, you probably experienced this at some point because you come from a running background, but it's where your ankles are inflexible. So it happens to most triathletes that come from a running background because all that running, your ankles are going to be kind of angled the wrong way for swimming. So you want to just, first of all, so runner's kick is what it's going to do is it's basically your feet act as anchors. So they're actually pulling you back as you swim. So, and I've seen it where people actually go backwards when they just kick because they have such bad flexibility in their ankles. So if you have this, it's not a horrible thing. You can actually get over this really quickly by simply stretching your ankles. So just sitting on your heels like every day, just do that for several minutes every day. That will help quite a bit. And that's like the first step of getting over this runner's kick and preventing those anchors from holding you back. And then after that, I would recommend doing that side kick drill that I mentioned and use the fins, use those zoomer spins, because the zoomers, and those other short fins too will work, but I like zoomers. They will kind of put your feet into the right position. So it sort of gets you used to being in that position. It helps with the flexibility. And then the third thing would be the vertical kicking. So if you have a deep enough pool, you can just jump in and either like at the beginning of your workout and the end or between sets or whenever you have time, just kick in place in a vertical position. And you may want to start with fins on your feet and then take them off after a while, but just kick as long as you can. Most likely you'll sink at first and then it'll get easier and easier. So maybe you can only go for 5 seconds at the beginning, but then as you build up, you'll start to naturally develop the kick that you need to stay up on the surface so that you can breathe. And that's a great way to just improve your kicking technique in general. So those are the most common mistakes I see.
Those are really excellent tips, and I'm sure that many listeners will go back and rewind that part and see what specific problems apply to them and what drills you recommended, and that's a good idea. And you're also spot on that I did have the runner's kick, and I went backwards when I first started doing certain kicking drills. But yeah, the stretching, sitting on your ankles, that really helps a lot. And it didn't take too long before my ankles got some flexibility in them, just practicing swimming and stretching. So it's not forever if you suffer from that at the moment.
Yeah.
So the next question would be, how should you incorporate open water swimming in your training, or how would you do that? And again, it's going to be individualized, but what's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in Finland in December, I would say probably not much of a chance of getting open water swimming in. Am I correct?
That is correct.
But in the summer, I'm sure it's amazing there with all the lakes and all the places to swim. So yeah, it really does depend on where you are. Even I've had some members that are from Mexico, and the weather's pretty good in Mexico year round for most parts. But they were asking me about, what do you do when the pools are closed? And it's like, so there are there's some instances where you don't even have access to a pool, so you kind of have to go to the open water. So there's kind of a variety of different reasons to train pool and reasons to train open water. But if you have access to open water and it's not too frigid outside, I do recommend getting in, kind of generally as much as possible, because you want to feel what it's like to be in the open water. And you want to get that feel for it as much as you can, especially if it's simulating the conditions that you'll be in whatever race you're doing. That really will help a lot. And I recommend doing it with a wetsuit because, well, most places it's just too cold not to, but then you get used to being in a wetsuit. And that's another thing that some people wait till the race day to put on their wetsuit, and then it's like a whole different experience swimming. So getting out in the open water, getting your wetsuit is really important. But it's a tough balance because you don't want to. I know a lot of people here in San Diego that just train in the ocean and they hate pools, so they don't ever get into a pool, and it's just like, and it gets cold here. I mean, the weather's generally fairly warm in the winter, but it gets cold in the ocean. The ocean is Fahrenheit like 56 degrees in the winter, but people they can't stand pools. They don't want to get in the chlorine, whatever it is. So they just train open water. And I see a lot of those people, their technique could be a lot better. And I think that's where you lose something. So for in season, if you have access to open water, I suggest that you get into open water at least once a week. If you can, once a week is great. And then the rest of your pools or rest of your swim sessions would be in the pool, because there's so many more things you can do in the pool as far as technique goes. It's much easier to practice drills. There's a lot of things that you can do with intervals and sprints and things like that, which you can kind of do in the open water, but for the most part, it's just a lot easier in a pool. So yeah, I mean, generally, like, get in that open water once a week leading up to your race if you can, but keep doing, keep going to the pool, keep doing the drills, and I think that's something that you can do throughout your training is keep incorporating those drills. And then as you get into intervals and sprints and things like that, that's so much easier in the pool. So, and I know people, I was going to mention, I know people on the other side of it that just train in the pool. They do not even get in the open water. Like Alex Kostic, who he's not a triathlete, but he's an open water swimmer, and he's won so many races around the world. He trains only in a pool. He does not train in open water, but yet he wins like so many races, like big long races all over the world. So it just shows you that you can totally do it, and you can get your fitness level up tremendously in a pool, even for open water swimming. So I hope that answers the question.
Definitely. Just one clarification there. What kind of workouts do you do when you're in the open water, or what would you recommend doing?
Yeah, mostly it's group training. So, most people don't go out in the open water by themselves, and I don't recommend that. Unless you're just a really good, strong swimmer and you just don't have time, or you're missing the right window of meeting up with people or something. But I would say always have someone there to swim with. So I look at open water swimming as, if you can have fun with it, that's the most important part. Get in your whatever you're doing that day, if it's 1 mile or if it's 500 meters or whatever, but have fun with it and train with the group. And you guys can challenge yourselves if you want, but I would say at the beginning, just try to get some distance in, get the feel for it, go out and have fun. And then have your little, I used to train with this group here in La Jolla, and we had little contests. We would go out and swim, let's say a couple miles, and then but during that, we would stop and take a break and chat a little bit, and then we'd go have a race to the next buoy or something like that. And those kind of things are always fun. And then just depending on where you are, I like doing the thing where you swim, do a long swim, and then jump out, put on your shoes, and then go for a run right after. It's not exactly a brick workout like people do, but it keeps things fun, rather than just doing one thing and then leaving.
Good points there. So the final question of this main interview segment is just trying to keep it short so we can stay on time, but what's your take on strength training for improving swim performance? So do you have any specific strength work that you like triathletes to do that will help their swimming?
Yeah, I recommend that they look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and just copy exactly what he does, so they can get really big and bulky and muscle up. No, just kidding. I think there's strength training for swimming is awesome. I love it, and it's especially great if you are trying to get to that next level, whatever it is for you. If you are sort of at the beginner level, you want to advance to the intermediate, sort of mid-pack level, or if you're a competitive triathlete and you want to get your swim to the point where you're competing with the upper levels of your age group, the strength training is something that's really going to help. Now, as far as specifics go, it really depends on who you are, where you are in your training, what race you're training for, how long the race, all of these things. There's so many factors in it. But in general, we like the dry land kind of exercises. So the elastic tubing is great. If you can just get elastic tubing and sort of simulate freestyle, that's a good start. I mean, you can get some workouts in there. Just do some intervals. And we have some videos on this, but just doing that simulation of freestyle and then jumping in and doing your swim workout, that's a good way to improve your strength. But also, the Vasa trainer, that's a big one. The people, they're not super cheap, but if you are really serious about getting better at swimming, the Vasa trainer it's not only is it going to help with your strength, your power in the water, but it kind of corrects your technique while you do it. So if you guys don't know what a Vasa trainer is, it's kind of like a swim bench. So you can kind of do a workout. And if you're somewhere where you don't have access to a pool or open water, or it's too cold or whatever, you just don't want to leave the house, the Vasa trainer can actually substitute for a swim workout. Of course, I wouldn't recommend doing that all year round, but especially this time of year for the northern hemisphere people, stuff like Vasa trainer is pretty cool because you can actually just do your swim workout at home, and you're also working on your strength. So there's a lot that you can do in the gym as well. Chris Ritter, who I've done some webinars with and some other things with, is a strength trainer, and he's got some amazing programs specifically for endurance athletes that I like, that are out of the gym. And to get into specifics is tough because I'd have to know where that person is. But yeah, just thumbs up to strength training in general.
Sure. So let's move into the rapid fire question segments here, and we got 5 questions for you. Kevin, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go. What's your favorite book, blog, or resource related to triathlon or swimming?
I'm going to go with something that's not actually a book or blog, but a resource. It's a podcast, and it's called Primal Endurance, and it's with Brad Kearns. I've listened to, I think, just about all the shows now, and they're really amazing. So I highly recommend any triathlete, anyone that's involved in endurance sports to jump on this podcast.
What's your favorite piece of gear or equipment?
Well, it's probably not too surprising to the listeners, but because I've mentioned it a few times, but Zoomer's fins are my favorite. That's going to accelerate your progress in swimming. And there's no concern with getting addicted to them as long as you are using them just for drills and not for swimming faster. That's the big difference. So we use them for almost all the drills we do. We use Zoomer's fins. For swimming, we rarely use Zoomers because a lot of times people use them to get faster so that they can compete with their teammates or whatever, and that's not going to help you. But so Zoomers.
That falls in nicely with the next question, which is, are there any swimming tools that you think are overprescribed or overused?
Yeah, I can't decide if it's pull buoys or kickboards. I have to say that, well, I mean, both of them are abused by triathletes quite a bit. There are some uses for pull buoys. So despite the fact that I've written a lot of things that are anti-pull buoy, I'm not completely anti-pull buoy because there are some uses for them, but I think there are specific uses, whereas a lot of triathletes and sort of newish swimmers, they put on that pull buoy and all of a sudden they're going way faster because they don't have to think about their balance in the water. But I think that the more you can work on that balance, the better off you're going to be. And if you use the pull buoy, it sort of gives you the artificial feeling of being on top of the water. And then the kickboards don't really help you. I'm not anti-kickboards either completely, because I think there are uses for them in terms of like, you want to have a social time with your swim and just get a kickboard and talk to your friend. I think that's great. But if you're doing it to get better at kicking or better at swimming, it's not really going to help because you're kicking on your stomach and you really want to be more on your side when you're swimming. So yeah, I'm sort of a pull buoy and kickboard Nazi.
So is there a personal habit that you have that helped you become a great swimmer?
Yeah, I'd have to say that it would be self-acceptance. It's the idea of accepting where you are and not comparing yourself to everyone around you. And so I talk to a lot of triathletes on a daily basis that are struggling with swimming. And oftentimes I hear this thing of like, I'm so slow, or I'm a horrible swimmer, or I'm the worst, or I'm going to come in last, whatever it is. It's all these put downs of yourself, but generating that self-acceptance, and this can apply to so many areas of life. I mean, this is everything in life, and this is how to become happier with yourself in general. But with swimming, it's self-acceptance. Start where you are now and think about this. Like, you are going to have a much easier time improving yourself, whatever you're doing, if you can say, okay, this is where I am now. Like, I don't know how to do all these things, but I know I'm here now and I know this is what I can do. And you have this, it's really actually pretty awesome because you have so much room for improvement. Whereas someone that's like a professional, they just have little tiny areas where they can improve. So you as a beginner or even like an intermediate, you're going to have like this huge area where you can just make all these little improvements that are going to add up to bigger gains. And so it's exciting. You can keep working on this and experience this over the next few months or years. And yeah.
Excellent answer. So finally, if you could ever only prescribe 3 drills to triathletes and no more, what would those 3 drills be?
Yeah, it's tough to narrow it down to 3, but this is kicking on your side. I mentioned that one. That's a really important drill. And if you can kick on your side, and again, with the Zoomer's fins, it would be awesome. The more you can do that. And then when I say that kick on your side, I mean rotate your hips and put your head down. So you want to have your hand extended, head down, rotate your hips so your belly button is facing like one of the walls of the pool, and then roll just all the way onto your back to get air and take a few breaths. So do this in a slow motion. It doesn't need to be hurried along. The idea is that you're improving your body position in the water. You're also improving your balance, and you're getting that feel for what it's like to be on your side as opposed to on your stomach in the water, which is that common mistake. And then the shark fin drill, which is just an extension of the kicking on your side. You're just lifting your elbow up. So it's more work on your balance, and then it's work on that stroke recovery and getting kind of used to having that elbow bent. And then the third thing I would say would be, and this is a little bit different. This isn't actually a drill, but more of a practice, and that's the deep breathing. You can do this on a daily basis, and it really helps. So there's all kinds of ways to do deep breathing, but there's two methods that I like, and one I'm just learning now, but the other one I've been doing for years, which is it's 4-7-8. So 4 seconds in, like 1, 2, 3, 4 as you're breathing in, and then hold it for 7 seconds, and then let it go for 8 seconds, count of 8. And this will help really calm your body down. So if you're trying to go to sleep at night, it's great. And if you're trying to calm down before a race, like that pre-race anxiety, it's great. If you're trying to calm yourself down before you do a workout or something, it's still great. I mean, it works for all these different areas. So I like that one. And then the deep breathing, the other one is the Wim Hof method, which I'm just learning now. So I don't have a full-on explanation of that, but I'm going to be coming out with that soon. But it does involve a lot of deep breathing as well. So not a drill, but I highly recommend getting into the daily practice of doing the deep breathing.
That's very interesting. Yeah, cool. Gonna try that one. I actually tried the 4-7-8. Was that a sequence of numbers or?
Yeah.
I tried it a few times, but that was a long time ago, and I gave it up for some reason. But yeah, gonna try that again. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, so, don't do it too many times. Don't do it too many times when you first start out, because you'll get really dizzy. So it's really weird. It's like, when did you do 3 in a row? And it's like, whoa, what happened? So yeah, just start off with 1 or 2 and see how that feels.
So finally, Kevin, tell the listeners where they can connect with you and find out more, and also what you got. You told us a bit in the beginning about the programs that you have going on, and I also know for a fact that I'm actually myself watching your Global Swimming Summit at the moment. But tell the listeners where they can connect with you and what you got to offer.
Oh yeah. Them. Yeah, for sure. So first, my website, TriSwimCoach.com. You can just go there, and we have a blog there too. So we post blogs about twice a week, just all kinds of swimming related topics, and we have videos going out. So if you go to TriSwimCoach.com/blog, you'll see that. And we also have a giveaway. It's 3 common mistakes triathletes make, and we have videos to explain these in detail. So all the stuff that I've been talking about, if you go to the website, you can just opt in, just give us your email address, and you'll get all that for free, and we'll analyze each of these levels of mistakes. And then, you mentioned the Global Swimming Summit. I appreciate that. That's something I'm doing, again, with my partner, Chris Ritter, and he's the strength training guy. And we interviewed several top-notch swimmers, coaches, and people that can really help with open water swimming and that have a lot of knowledge in that area. Some of them are professional triathletes, some of them are open water swimmers. And we got into some details on that, and we put together this summit. So the summit is actually starting now, but it's going to be going on through the end of next week. So today is October 26th, and you can sign up anytime. This is also free, so there's no charge. You can go in and watch all of these talks, and we did videos for each of them. And so that's another thing that we're doing right now is the Global Swimming Summit. I think it's a really good thing for anybody from a beginner swimmer, beginner triathlete, to somebody that is trying to get to the next level, trying to improve, maybe get to the podium. These are all talks that are really going to help you. And again, it's globalswimmingsummit.com. You can just go there and join at any time in the next about week and a half now. And just one more thing I want to plug before we go, and it's another program that we have called the Fit Triathlete, and we're kind of rolling that out. We started with a kind of a beta version about a month ago, but we're going to have a lot more on that. And that's kind of the trying to be fit as a triathlete, as opposed to just being race ready. We're focusing on overall fitness. So it goes into things like fat burning and mindsets and getting the proper rest and all these things that are kind of around triathlon, not the actual workout plans, but the overall optimal health and fitness. And we have a website there. It's the fittriathlete.com. And we're not right now, currently, we don't have anything up, but you can sign up for the future. We're going to be releasing that in a couple weeks. We're going to have the new version out. So that's something I really want to get people excited about, because I think it's what we're really doing the sport for, is to be fit. So I want to really promote that.
It's super relevant, definitely. I mean, most age groupers are in it to just get general fitness. That's just a fact. Most aren't in it to be extremely competitive at their age group level. So cool that you have that coming out. And we're going to take just one listener question before saying goodbye, because we're running out of time here. But that question was about how to get over open water anxiety. This listener wrote in by email, and is fairly comfortable in the pool, but really anxious when it comes to getting into the open water. So what would you do in that situation?
Yeah, we actually did a course a while back called Open Water Swim Success, and we focus a lot on this specific issue. This is where we had about 10 people that went through this course. It was like a live course. And we spent a lot of time working on specific issues. A lot of people have this. I mean, that's so common, especially in triathlon, where you've got this mass start where there's just people splashing all around you, and there's a lot of physical contact a lot of times. And even just ocean swimming in general, if that's where you're swimming, that can be pretty stressful. Or swimming in a lake where you don't know where the bottom is. There's a lot of different levels of this. There's the feeling that there's something below you. And I've talked to so many people that have this fear of something in the water that might, there might be below you that you can't see, that's going to come up and attack you or something. And that, like that coming from the ocean, that there are sharks out there. So that's a legitimate kind of fear. But even people have it in rivers and lakes and stuff where there's no danger. But this is there's a few things that I recommend. One is that breathing technique that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. So doing that deep breathing before you get in, and that kind of calms you down so you can sort of focus more on your swim. And then once you're in and once you're going, so you start swimming and you start feeling that anxiety coming along or coming on, it's good to focus on something. Like a lot of people, what works well is counting. So either counting your strokes, just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, or just counting every 2 strokes. So 1, 2, 1, 2. That'll have your mind focused on the thing that you're doing. So it kind of keeps you, it's that mindfulness. And you really need that mindfulness when you're out there in the open water. So the focus on those specific things and the deep breathing will start to help you overcome that anxiety. And then as far as the race start where it's chaotic, that involves a lot of experience. If you have a group of people that you train with, it's great to simulate that. If you can get in a lane in a pool and just get a bunch of people in and just sort of know what it's like to swim around a lot of people, because it is a different experience than swimming in your own space. But also with the race, just one more thing to add to that is that I recommend not trying to get in with the pack if you're a beginner, especially if you're a beginner. But even if you're not a beginner, like I do this thing where when the race starts, go off to the side. So let's say there's a buoy that everyone's trying to get to. Start off to the side, so way off to the right or something, so that you're not in the pack at all. So you're just got your own water and you can just swim your own race and you're not worried about what everyone else is doing. And you're not worried about getting to that buoy first or in the top 10 or anything. You're just swimming your own race. And that helps quite a bit. And the last thing would be to, as far as the race goes, is to start a little bit behind everyone. So let the gun go off, let everyone start, and then get in. And so you're not, you're not competing for that first position, because there's no reason to do that anyway, because nobody's going to win the triathlon based on that first, 500 meters or whatever.
Great tips. Thank you, Kevin. This has been super helpful, and I'm sure the listeners have gotten a lot of great tips about how to improve their triathlon swing, whether they are at a beginner level or are more advanced triathletes already. So
yeah, thanks, Michael. I really enjoyed being on your show. I think this has been a lot of fun, and good luck with the show. I think it sounds like you're doing a great thing here. You've got, the content looks great, and I'm looking forward to some of the guests that you have coming up as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Really appreciate that. So goodbye, everybody, and make sure that you go to www.scientifictriathlon.com/thattriathlon show. That's where you can follow along with all the previous episodes. They're all up there on the website, and you can watch them, or you can download the MP3s, and you can see when we have the next live interview scheduled. Remember, we're doing these interviews live, so you can send in questions, and you can also sign up for the email list, and then that way you can send in questions beforehand if you can't attend the show live. So yeah, thank you for today, and we'll see you next week.